Hey guys, it's Joe of WagerTalk. I'm joined today by Dave Cokin. We are going to be discussing the Big 12 conference. Dave, let's jump right into it. Baylor, looks like a rebuild year for them. They went 2-7 last year. What are you thinking?
Well, it's a rebuilding program at this point because the way the Big 12's configured, you really can't catch up in just 1 year. And the fact is they fell behind a lot of programs, and it's going to be kind of a long road back. Now, I mean, there's some decent talent on the team on the defensive side. Not sure what they're going to do offensively, though. Quarterback position appears to be in flux right now. I'm not sure they have a true starting quarterback on this team. So it's going to be a down year for Baylor. I can't see them getting to 500 in the conference this difficult. And looks like no bowl this year for the Bears.
Absolutely. So Iowa State, this team is in a totally different position. They've got head coach Matt Campbell. They went 9-3 last year. Is this the best Iowa State team we've ever seen?
Yeah, I mean, I can't go back far, maybe 55 or 60 years ago, who knows? But certainly in not so recent memory, this is the best program they've had. Now with that comes big expectations. They're expected to maybe not make the playoffs, but certainly contend for the Big 12 title and maybe make a run at getting one of the playoff spots. I think the talent's there for them to do it. Purdy's really solid at quarterback. There's no real weaknesses on this team. And I think Iowa State at this point, on my charts, they rate as the second best team in the conference. So we'll see if they live up to billing.
Yeah, I would love to see them live up to those expectations. We move on to Kansas now. This is a team 0-9 last year. New coaching staff. What's happening over in Kansas?
Well, they've brought in another new staff, and this time I think they might have hit a winner. And the guy they brought in from Buffalo, he's got no talent right now, so there's no place to go but up. I do think Kansas is marginally improved. Does that mean they can win a game in the conference? I don't know. One win in conference play would actually be an achievement. So they're going to finish last in the conference again, but for the first time in a long time, I think you can look at Kansas and say maybe the groundwork is going to get set now for them to become a more respectable program than they've been. For a Big 12 team to be a legitimate bottom 10 team in the country is a complete embarrassment. I think they'll move out of that range this year. They're still not going to be a top 100 team, but at least they might be heading in the right direction.
Well, that's definitely good news for them that they'll be heading in the right direction. What about Kansas State? Now, we look at this team. They've got a pretty strong Their defense isn't great, but
no.
Can they stay healthy? There's so many injuries always for this team.
Yeah, and of course, it starts at quarterback with Thompson. They've got to keep him on the field.
Yeah.
The offense does have a chance to be good. I think it's fairly dynamic. And it's not like this conference is loaded with great defenses, so Kansas State should be able to put some points on the board. The question is, can they stop people? I'm not sure they can do that. And based on that, I've got Kansas State down in the lower half of the division. I think they'll be kind of fun to watch, but I don't think they're going to win a whole lot of games.
Okay, so that means we're moving on to Oklahoma. Now, this is a team that went 8-3 last year, major contenders. Dave, what do you think their hopes are?
Their expectations should be a playoff spot. I think anything outside of a top 5 is a disappointment for this program. They can't give away games like they did last year. There are no weaknesses. Rattler is going to contend for being the best quarterback in the country. He could very well be sitting in New York City for the Heisman Awards at the end of the season. There's no excuses for Oklahoma. They're absolutely a powerhouse this season. And on paper, they're good enough to be a playoff team.
Okay, so Oklahoma State. They went 8-3 also last year. Now, they have their quarterback, Spencer Sanders, returning. This is his 3rd year starting as quarterback. They have a couple of O-line concerns. Any other issues that you see with this team?
Not major issues, and I think you've hit on the one area that's the biggest liability of the team potentially is the offensive line. It better come together quickly. If it does, Oklahoma State's going to be a team that can battle with anybody on a weekly basis. Now, they won't win all those games because there are some teams in this conference that are better than they are, but they're certainly in the top half of the conference. And if the offensive line comes around, they could do better than 4th or 5th.
Now, are you looking for TCU to carry their momentum into this next season? They had a great run at the end of the last.
Yeah, look, it's a good program. It's always going to be a good program under Patterson. They get enough good players in there to be respectable every season. But in the Big 12, TCU is just not as strong as some other programs, and that's going to be an annual problem for them. To me, they're a team that maybe can win the conference once every 10 years. This isn't one of those 10 years. They'll be a middle-of-the-pack team, certainly good enough to get to a bowl, but to me, it would be a reach for them to expect to contend with the big guys in the conference.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Now, the Texas Longhorns, this is a great team. High expectations for this team. Where do you see them going?
Well, the expectations are always high for Texas, and sometimes they've been unrealistically high. I don't necessarily think that's the case this year. There's some good talent, and I think Steve Sarkisian is going to be out to prove that he's head coach worthy. He resurrected his career after the problems in the Pac-12. Did a great job with Alabama, and now it's time to move on and do the job at Texas. And they're immediately going to be a team in the mix in the Big 12. I don't think they're good enough to beat Oklahoma. I think they might be a notch behind Iowa State. So the record might end up similar to last season. To me, it's a question of how they look, even in the losses. Are they going to be a team that is out there knocking on the door to win every week? I think the answer is probably yes on that count. Should be a good season for the Longhorns.
Now, Dave, at Texas Tech, they have head coach Matt Wells. With this team, do you see them having any really upscale players other than their skill position?
No, that's their strength. They're going to be able. They can run the ball. They can throw the ball, but I don't know if they're going to stop anybody. They've got questions all over the place, and that's death in this conference. There's just too many good quality teams. And I'm not making out the Big 12 to be the SEC. It's not at that level, but there's really only one bad program in the conference, which means every week is a dogfight. Texas Tech doesn't have the horses to compete on a weekly basis. I think they're going to be down toward the bottom of the conference, and I've got them only ahead of Kansas in my projections for the season.
Okay, good to know there, Dave. What about West Virginia? Now, this has an outstanding offensive side of the ball. What about their defense? Do you think they're going to be able to pull this team together? They went 6-4 last year.
I've actually got it flipped. I think the defense is strong. I don't like the offense very much. And
okay.
I think that's going to be an issue for them, is being able to hang with really good offensive opponents that are still going to find ways to put points on the board against them. I don't think West Virginia is going to be able to do that on a regular basis. They're okay. I think they've got a chance to be a winning team and to get to a bowl game, but I think that's about as good as it gets. I've got them lower middle of the pack in the Big 12.
Okay, Dave, thank you so much for joining us today and talking Big 12 Conference. You guys, for all of Dave's best picks, make sure you head over to WagerTalk.com.